Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Dr. Nadia Islam. I am going to start the webinar. It's a third webinar from a Dream Come True webinar series from DMC Club UK. Welcome to today's webinar. Sorry, I think we run into a technical issue. I'm so sorry for that. So today's topic in the webinar is exploring the surgical training pathway. So we have got two wonderful esteemed speakers for the webinar today. So first of all, I would like to introduce Dr. Tanvir Hossain, consultant upper GI surgeon currently working at Birmingham University Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. So Dr. Hossain, I will be asking you to chair today's webinar for us, please. And then we have got lovely Dr. Mehnaj Noor, who will be starting as an ST3 general surgery training in February in Wessex Deanery. So I welcome you all, and I hope that you all enjoy the webinar today and it helps you in your future career ahead. So I'm just handing it over to Dr. Hossain now, and I'm going to be staying on the background if you need anything.
Hi, so thank you and good evening, everybody. And thank you so much, Nadia, and the rest of the DMC alumni, DMC Club, I should say, and also BD.UK UK for co-hosting this webinar. So yeah, exciting webinar that's going to describe the surgical training pathway in the UK. And Mehnaj is a very, very promising surgical trainee. So I'm also looking forward to her presentation. So off you go, Mehnaj.
Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation, Mr. Hossain?
We can see it, yeah.
Amazing. So thank you very much for the introduction. I would like to thank DMC Club UK and Bangladeshi Doctors in UK for bringing up this amazing webinar for surgical aspirants. And thank you very much for inviting me to share my surgical experience. Before I go to the presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about myself. So, because I'm gonna share my experience, very personal experience, for a few minutes. I completed my graduation and internship in Bangladesh from Sir Salimullah Medical College in 2019, and I started my first NHS job in 2020. Within 18 months of starting my job, I secured a core surgical training number. And when I was in second year of my core training, I secured my ST3 number, which I'm going to start in February. So as you can imagine, I had a very little experience when I started to think about my career in surgery in UK. So I used to ask a lot about how it's going to be. And what I used to hear before I started working in NHS was this. So they won't let you operate unless you are in training. And even then, good luck as an IMG. You will never get training post in surgery. It's way too competitive. And there is less patient exposure in NHS. So how will you even learn? There were more. I have just highlighted these three. After I started working, but I didn't get into surgical training number yet, I used to hear, you can't do surgery, it's not for you. You will never get a training number, even local graduates struggle. You are too nice to survive in the surgical world. You are a lady, you won't be able to balance work and life. And it was actually said by one of my medical consultants. But my experience was very different. what I think, getting a surgical training number is very much possible. What I think you need to do is just believe in yourself. And the way I see it, if I can do it, you can do it too. I'm not going to say surgical training application is not competitive. It's highly competitive, but it's a fair process. In my experience, I was never treated unfairly when I was in non-training post, though it was just for a few months. And I promise, I haven't seen any secret handshakes or VIP rooms for local trainees. The thing I love most about NHS is there is no gender discrimination, not from patients, not from my colleagues. And about being nice, I have met inspiring and incredibly supporting colleagues in my path, especially in surgery. So I don't think being nice is a limitation. I think it's an asset. And work-life balance in surgery, that can be a challenge, no doubt. But it's like a juggling sculptures, I think. Tough at first, but totally possible with practice and a little bit caffeine. Caffeine doesn't work for me, by the way. And early exposure to cutting-edge technique like robotic surgery. So from all those negativities, I started to think about if I will fit in surgery. So I did a tester week, and it was under upper GI team in Portsmouth. And on my first day, I got opportunity to get into a robotic list. It was amazing. And as a CT2, I used to do bedside assisting. I could go to theater at any time and watch. I could sit in console. Of course, I wouldn't be doing anything, but it was a great experience. Where are you going to get it? You can get it in NHS. Surgery training pathway is rewarding, but absolutely is very long. It is a marathon, not a sprint, but you will have support throughout. And look at the bright side. At the end of this epic journey, you will achieve your dream of becoming a surgeon. I think to get into a training number, it's very important to understand the training pathway very well. So I'm going to talk about training pathway in general, mostly highlighted in general surgery. So in general, you can say that you start with a core surgical training after foundation year. It's a 2-year training. We call it CST1 and CST2. CST2 years are themed because, except neurosurgery, ophthalmology, and cardiothoracics, everyone apply for core surgical training after finishing their foundation year. And then, if you want to do general surgery, you try to choose a theme job for general surgery. So your CT2 year will be themed general surgery so that you can achieve all the numbers you need, all the things you need for your ST3 application. Same for ENT, same for plastics. It's generally SHU equivalent, and completion of MRCS is required for successful completion of core surgical training. Once you are done with your core surgical training, then you start thinking about specialty training. If you haven't done core surgical training, that's absolutely fine. You just need alternative competence form signed off to apply for specialty training. It's called higher specialty training, or ST. It's 6-year training for general surgery. This is where every surgical specialty has their different application process. Even vascular surgery is separated from general surgery for last 2 years. It's a registrar equivalent post, and after finishing, you achieve CCT. And if you pass FRCS and CCT, then you are eligible for consultant roles, but that's a whole different conversation. You might have heard of run through. So it's actually where you start from ST1. You don't need to apply for ST3. You go straight to ST8, but it's currently on hold for general surgery. So from now on, our focus will be ST3 application process for 2025. So those who are applying for ST3 general surgery this time, it will be very helpful for them because I have just applied. So I've just gone through this process. So I will share my experience. Those who are not applying for this time, but considering, it will be also helpful for them because my personal experience is the more you are oriented to the whole system, the more prepared you will be when you will apply. So this is the timeline. It's very important you are well aware of the timeline so that you can plan your year. You know when to get your audits done, presentation done. So application this year opened mid-November. It would be open till 5th of December. So you can get an idea that it will be open for around 3 weeks. After that, you will hear if you were longlisted. If you were longlisted, then you will be invited to upload your evidences, which I'll go in detail in next few slides, and it will be open for a month. Then they will release the portfolio result around early February. You will get opportunity to appeal if you are not happy with the score you have received. And usually interview invitations go on end of February, and then your interview will be 17, 18 or 19 March. They tend to follow the timeline quite well. Sometimes they miss to, but most of the time they follow the timeline. And initial offers are out on 15th of April. The reason I'm mentioning it, because it will be important for later. So who can apply? So it's very simple. You need to have full MRCS Part A and Part B, but you don't need to have both when you are applying. If you have passed both of them by offer date, which was mid-April, should be fine. And now you need to show that you are competent enough to start as ST3. That means you have core training competences signed off. So if you are in training, so if you are a CT2 applying for ST3, then you need to submit your ARCP outcome for CT 1 year, and you are expected to finish CT2 year on time. It should be fine. If you have completed CST, then you need to upload your ARCP outcome of CT2 year. If you have not gone through core surgical training, that's absolutely fine. You just need to get your alternative form signed off, which is called CREST form, and it's available in Oriel. So if you go to general surgery, the vacancy, general surgery, if you click on documents, it's there. So then if you are longlisted, you will have to upload all the evidences, and it will be verified. And depending on your verified self-assessment scoring, you will be invited for interview. This time they are assessing you on 7 domains. So this keeps changing, and I think the biggest change was last year when I applied. So you might have heard about this. You might have heard that if you have too much experience in general surgery or in surgery, you get penalized. You can't apply for specialty training. That was the case. That was the case before last year. So there used to be a thing called N. So N was a number. It's actually the more year you have spent after medical school, the higher will be your N number. And then your audits, publications, and presentations, total number would be divided by N. So it was a little bit difficult for experienced trainees to get that number, but plenty of experienced trainees got into training when N existed. So it can't be a limiting factor for you. You just need to be mindful of that. So just 2 weeks before application opened, we realized that N is gone, and my N was 2. So I was like, I'm not gonna get it. But in the end, I managed to get an interview, and I got a job. So either way, you can do it. Let's dive into these 7 domains. So the first one is they're looking into how many months you have spent in general surgery, and they are asking by end of July or completion of core training, which is around end of July in general anyway. So total months spent in general surgery in any post-foundation program. So if you have spent some time in foundation program, that surgical months won't be counted in any country. So I was scoring here from 13 to 24 months. So I lost 2 points here. And the thing we need to be a little bit mindful here is if you are more than 37 months, that is when you start to lose points. But again, I have seen so many experienced trainees to get training number with me. So that can't be a limiting factor. You need to gather more points on other domains. So this is the template which you need to get signed off by your educational supervisor or your supervisor. It says or equivalent for all the questions. I took this picture from Oriel. It exactly looks like this. So you just need to put a tick on where you are, and then you need to get this signed off by your educational supervisor or equivalent. So if you are in training, you will have an educational supervisor. If you are not in training, you still might have educational supervisor or clinical supervisor. If you don't have supervisor assigned to you, that's absolutely fine. You just need to approach one of your consultant who will be happy to sign this for you. If you are applying from outside UK, then your departmental head or any of the consultant in your department can sign this. In that case, you just need to be mindful of their professional registration number. For Bangladesh, it will be BMDC number. Now, if anyone can make a single word out of it, I would be very surprised. The reason I'm showing this because it's an excellent doctor's handwriting. You don't want this to be on your ES name or your ESGMC number, because I have seen so many people getting 0 because the panel couldn't understand their education supervisor's name or GMC number, so they couldn't verify it. So what I did, I printed my educational supervisor's name and I printed my his GMC number when I prepared this template, and I only left this signature box empty for him. So he just signed there. So I would recommend you do the same. So what evidences you will need for this? So you would have to, of course, upload this template properly signed by supervisor. And then if you are in training, you would have to show the evidence of completion of training post, like ARCP outcome. So on ICP, ARCP outcome usually shows what rotations you were in, but I also uploaded the offer letter I was sent before starting every rotation from Dinari, because it usually says start date, end date, and specialty I was working in very nicely. And for non-training post, usually we get an offer letter from HR before starting our post. So you can upload that, but that page, front page, must include your specialty, start date and finish date. If you don't have that, don't worry. Just ask your HR to provide a letter, or your supervising consultant, or just head of the department to provide you a letter, and just add that. That should be fine. So the next question is, they are just asking how many 4 months rotation you have done in surgery other than general surgery specialties, so like other surgical specialties, A&E and ITU. If you have done less than 4 months, they are not giving you any point. But if you have spent at least 4 months in any of like urology and pediatric surgery, that's it. You get 4 points. If you have spent 1, then 2, you get 2 points. So maximum you can achieve 4 points. I think that's quite easy. You can easily get these 4 points. The template looks kind of the same. Again, you need to get it signed properly by your supervisor. And evidences were exactly the same. For non-training post, you need to show the contract, and for training post, ARCP outcome and offer letter I did add as well. So next domain is appendectomies completed. So they are asking how many appendectomies, laparoscopic or open, you have performed at the time of application. Please be mindful, is at the time of application. So done means either STS or STU. I'm just going to explain it a bit because there might be someone who might not know about it. So STS is supervised trainer scrubbed. In this case, you need to have at least done 50% of the operation. So what I used to do, at the end of operation, I used to ask my consultant or my registrar, do you think I can add it as STS? Most of the time, the response was, yes, if you have done the ports, you have done a little bit dissection, you have put the envelope, yes, you can add it as STS. STU is your trainer was present, but they were not scrubbed in with you. And P is performed, that means you have done it. And T is you were training a trainee. So if you have assisted, that won't be counted. And now you can score maximum 4 points. I was scoring 26 to 35, so I lost 1 point there. Last year, they were penalizing if you had more than 45, but this time they're penalizing if you have 81, more than 81, which is good, I think, for experienced trainees. And they are this is the template, which is again quite straightforward, but about the validated e-logbook, they have actually added so much instructions this time. Because last time, as they were penalizing if someone has more than 45, they have found few applicants omitted their logbook evidence, so they have scored 0. So this time they have mentioned that your e-logbook evidence must be congruent with your employment history, because when you will apply on ORIEL, you will have to provide your full employment history. So if they feel like you were in a general surgical post, but you have omitted so that you can show less number of appendectomies in your e-logbook, they are going to give you minimum score, which is 0. And about the e-logbook, what I did, I printed a consolidated report from e-logbook, and then I got it signed every page by my educational supervisor. Again, I wrote his name and his GMC number myself, and I left the signature box empty for him. So he just signed so that it's clearly legible. Because I know one of my registrar's friend got 0 because panel couldn't make out the name of the education supervisor, so they couldn't verify it. So please be very mindful. Next domain, that was the most tricky bit for our year. So every time if I would have asked my seniors, they'll be like, yes, if you have publication, that's fine. But if you don't have, that's fine. You can still get an interview, don't worry. But this time they have made it kind of very important. So the whole thing is out of 60 and 10 points were coming from publication. And I just had one, but it was first author PubMed cited publication. So I got quite good number in that, but I didn't have a second one. So I got 0 out of 5 for second publication. So your publication must be PubMed cited and must be published by the time of application to be eligible for this. So these are the templates. So if you have no publication, you just tick on that. But if you have any publication, then you mark it as first publication and you explain. Now, this time you need to also add journal impact factor. And it's just asking a few questions like what type of application, how was your authorship, how much you actually played role in it, what was the clinical impact, these sort of questions. And along with that, you need to submit a copy of each publication, including authorship list, journal reference, PubMed ID, and journal impact factor. Collaborative papers are also accepted, but I was not very lucky. None of my collaborative papers were published at that time. But if you are lucky, then if it's presented, you can of course claim points for it. And you need to provide a list of collaborators with your name highlighted. Otherwise, no points being given for this section. My publication was in Mymensingh Medical Journal. So if anyone want to have some advice, please get in touch. I'll try to help you with my limited experience. Next domain is presentation. Again, you need to submit 2 of your best presentation. You can include poster presentation to be eligible for this section. And the presentation must have occurred by the time of application because they're going to ask for your certificate. And points will be awarded for candidate contribution, how much work you have put in it, quality of study, and scope of meeting, regional, national, or international. So 5 points per presentation, 10 in total. What they have changed this time is presentations made at departmental or hospital level only will not be accepted. So you need to at least present it in a regional meeting. A poster is absolutely fine, but if it was presented at departmental or hospital level, they're not giving you any points this time. Presentation made in the course of applicant delivering teaching or training activity will not be accepted. So you need to be invited to present. You can't claim points if you are just delivering it while you are teaching or training. So this is how the templates look. So if you don't have presentation, you just you just put a tick on that. Otherwise, you just mark your presentation and just fill in all the details. It's more like the publication, and then the evidences they're asking for, again, the template signed by supervisor, a copy of relevant page of the meeting program, and a copy of presentation. So about this, the relevant page of meeting program. So one of my presentation was in regional meeting, and my second presentation was presented in Bangladeshi Doctors in UK conference. So what I did, I submitted the invitation letter from those meetings as a evidence for this, and they accepted it. And about this, I would say, so Bangladeshi Doctors in UK had just held an amazing conference a few weeks ago. It's a very good opportunity if you wanna present your project. Next question is audits and QIP. Again, it was a big change last year because previously there was a certain amount of point you could have claimed for audits or QIPs. So if you didn't have closed loop audits, it was fine. Your audits would do the same, or QIP. But from last year, they're asking for closed loop audits particularly. So 2 best closed loop audits and 1 additional audit or QIP. So for this one, for additional one, you can either submit an audit or QIP. I submitted a QIP, but you must have 2 closed loop audits. And points will be awarded for candidate involvement, reference standard, study design, how important the clinical question was, and impact of work. And involvement in both audit cycle are required if you want to score points for closed loop audits. And it's actually a massive number. So 8 points per closed loop audits and 5 points for additional one, maximum 21 points for this section. And again, you must have presented it by the time of application if you want to provide the evidence of presentation. This is how the template looks like. Again, kind of same, you need to answer all these questions, you need to fill all these questions, and then you need to get it signed by your supervisor. Evidence along with the template, you need to submit copy of all of your presentations and letter from head of the department or lead for audit stating your contribution. Simple audit certificate won't be enough. So what I did for this letter is I used all the words from the applicant handbook, like led the project, designed the project, and I worded it exactly like it was in applicant handbook, and I got it signed by head of my department. About this, when they opened the application and I realized I didn't have any closed loop audits, I was really worried. But what I did, I picked up very simple audits, which like happens every day, like antibiotic compliance, CPOT form, something like that. And then I did my initial data collection retrospectively, and second cycle I did prospectively, and I was very lucky. I got it presented in 3 weeks time, and it got accepted for ACID conference as well for poster presentation. So what I'm trying to say, that you have plenty of time to get it done, and I scored 6 out of 8, so it was not that bad, so it's doable. So this is the last question. It's UK higher degree. Most of the applicants I know couldn't score much here. I had a PG certificate course in medical education. I did it under University of Dundee, and it was a 6 month course. I didn't know if I would be scored points. So when I asked my supervisor, he said, you need to submit everything you can. So he signed it, and they scored me 1. So that was really good. And if you have any questions regarding this, I don't have much idea, but if you ask the question in Q&A session, I'm sure Mr. Hossain will be able to help you. So the whole portfolio will be scored by 2 consultants independently. So it will be 60 for 1 consultant, 120 in total, and then it will be converted into 100%. Depending on this score, top candidates, last time, as far I know, it was 290 candidates were invited for interview. So I scored 70%. Most of my colleagues scored from 68 to 72, somewhere there. I have seen someone scoring 82%, 83%. The minimum score, as far I know, was 58 to 60%. So if you get an interview, if you get shortlisted and if you get an interview, then I would say you have a fair chance, because at that time the competition became almost 2 candidates for 1 post. So interview, usually there are 3 stations, but I'm not going to talk in detail about this because we are planning for another webinar for this. So the take-home message, I would say, getting a surgical training number is definitely possible, but you need to act smart and hard in portfolio building and be very familiar with the application process. Even if you are planning to apply in 2-3 years time, please start getting familiarized with the application process. Go through the self-assessment, scoring, and applicant handbook multiple times, and believe me, every score counts. Keep working hard because they keep changing. Every time they change a little bit, so I won't be surprised if they include conferences next time, or if they start including courses next time. And if you have been invited to interview, you have fair chance to secure a training number. Any question?
Can we see any questions in the chat box? I can't. Okay, so whilst questions are coming up, thank you, Mehnaj, for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And we're obviously very proud of you and how successful you've been in 18 months getting your training number. So I'll go through just a few comments as you went through the presentation, just whilst we're waiting for some questions to come through. So yeah, the core training, you can go for core surgical training, but if you're not getting a core training number, that time that you're spending in a non-core training job, you can still work towards your core surgical training application. But think about it. Let's just say you're not lucky. You haven't got all the CV content in time for CST application. You can go for ST3 in 2 years' time, and you can make the time that you're in this non-training post like a core surgical training pathway. So make sure that you look at what content is required to sign your alternative competency form. Even if you're not in the UK yet, if you're sat in Bangladesh, your competencies for a core surgical trainee will include your MRCS, will include some operating, will include managing sick patients, will include a crisp course or equivalent. Look at the syllabus for that and keep working on that in the job that you're in. Because if you don't get a core surgical training post, but you've spent 2 years still working in a surgical post, if you've made that account, if you've gone and got the competencies that would be in a core surgical post, then you've got all the competencies and equivalents, and you can apply straight for ST3, getting your supervisors to sign the right forms. Essentially, this whole journey is paper chasing, okay? Paper chasing, but paper chasing for a good reason, because the big picture is you are going to be having people's lives in your hands, okay? You have to be competent, and all of these domains that you're being judged on are all very important for you to be a successful and competent surgeon. It is important, this paper chasing. So all of the things that Mehnaj just told you about, all of these application forms, all of these competencies, look at them as early as possible. Even if you're an intern or first year intern, look at these things, because there may be opportunities in whatever job you're in to actually collect some of these competencies. And the other thing that I would say is, yes, every year some of the application hoops change. Okay, so as Mehnaj said, there may be courses included next year, but the menu of things they can pick from are pretty much the same. So when I was applying, you got scored for what courses you'd been on, and those courses may come back. Okay, so there are courses that are important for a surgical trainee, such as ATLS, such as CRISP, which is care of the critically ill surgical patient. There are skills courses like laparoscopic skills courses. So also have a look at them and spend time doing them. And similarly, there are some things that won't ever come off. So before you used to get scored for up to 5 publications. Now I think you could put up to 2 publications, but publications are always going to matter. I can't see them ever taking publications out of this application process. And even if you never take a training pathway, let's say you don't secure an ST3 training number and you work in non-training posts, but over 6 years you get all the competencies to be a consultant, and you apply through the GMC specialist register. Then when you go for a consultant job, they will still want to see how many publications you've done. So publications, audits, presentations are things that will universally be important. So start working on doing them. And these projects, they don't have to be long and time consuming. They don't need to be where you're looking through 700 patient case notes and spending 6 months doing a project. There are projects that can be effective for patient care, can be effective for changing clinical practice, that take not very long. So I'll give you an example that I've probably told some of you guys. I was an STA at University of Nottingham in the upper GI department, and 2 of my F2s who were applying for core training in the following year approached me and said, Mr. Hossain, we want to do a project and we want to submit it to a conference. Oh, great. So what have you I've got a conference in mind. And they said, yeah, the BOMS conference, which is the obesity surgery conference. And I said, okay, so when's the deadline? They said Monday. So this is on Friday, they're telling me, right? So I gave them each of them a project to do on the Friday. They completed those projects by Sunday night. I proofread their abstracts, and by Monday they submitted. And one of those guys went and got a prize, the poster prize from that conference. So speak to your seniors, speak to your registrar, speak to Mehnaj, speak to me. Okay, we can give you projects that are quick. Okay, we can give you projects that take longer. But that kind of work should always be, on your to-do list. These are things you should be always chipping away at. It is a long haul. It is a big commitment, but it is possible. So, do we have any questions yet?
I can't see any on the chat.
I can't see either. I think Mehnaz, your presentation was so clear and wonderful.
Thank you.
Basically, I'm being an obs and gynae trainee. I can probably understand how to apply for an ST3 training. So I think it's quite clear. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome to apply, Nadia.
Yes, we'll be happy to have you.
No, thank you. So yes, everyone, if you've got any question, you can write on the YouTube link as well. There's a live going on, and or you're welcome to write here as well. But if you guys, Mehnaz or Dr. Hossain, if you want to add something, you are like welcome to do as well.
So, as Mehnaj said, the Bangladeshi Doctors in UK National Conference a few weeks back had opportunity for a lot of presentations. We had over 100 oral presentations, and we'll be running that conference again next year. We were very proud to have some of the team members are here today, actually, including Mehnaj. And we'll be running that national. Well, it was actually technically an international conference because we had delegates from as far as Turkey and Bulgaria. So that is just one of many conferences out there. Now, one of the things you can do, because I guess one of the biggest challenges in achieving and actually getting through surgical training is time management. And sometimes you've got to work to targets. So as I was going through training, I knew that every year I need to, even once I'd got my training number, I need to have at least one national presentation. That was always my target. And so rather than having a project and then working towards that, I would just work towards the date. So I knew ASIT deadline, December, ASGBI deadline, January. And so I used to have to go and find projects to do for those deadlines. I used to, work backwards basically, and that's something that you guys can do as well. If you know that you've got, an let's say if you're outside the UK and you know your MRCS graduation is, I don't know, April, you can look at what conferences there might be in that month as well. Since you've got your flight and visa, look at what conferences then, look at where the deadlines are, go and find a project to do that you can complete by the deadline. So that's something that I would suggest. What about you, Manoj? Have you got any other top tips?
I think I have covered most of it. I would just want to say it's sometimes it is very difficult to get all this done, this portfolio. It can be very, very difficult sometimes. But if you ask around, everyone is struggling and everyone is finding it difficult. You are not the only one. So I just want to say, believe yourself, because it makes me very sad when I see my colleagues or my seniors, even my juniors, wanted to do surgery but started working in NHS. They kind of didn't want to do it. So I'm just like, please believe in yourself. You can do it.
I agree. So we've got a question in the chat box, okay? And that is from Ahnav. So Ahnav said, when is the best time to do MSc? Can it be done alongside CST?
I haven't done MSc. So, Mr. Hussain, if you help me.
So I didn't do an MSc either. I did something called a DM, Doctorate of Medicine. So that was at University of Nottingham, and that runs along. It's in parallel to their PhD program. The higher degrees have different nomenclature. I think Oxford calls it a DPhil and stuff like that. So I did my higher degree between core surgical training and higher surgical training. Now, if you are targeting an ST3 post and you want to score higher and you want to do something part-time alongside whilst working, then yeah, something like a distant learning master's degree would be good, really good. And actually, the Dundee one that you did, Mehnaj, there is a master's version of that, and some of my colleagues were doing that.
Okay.
And it was all distance learning, so it's all remotely done, and it's all by submission of essays and a dissertation. So have a look at your time management. The Dundee one is very flexible because you do it modular, so you can at some point stop and say, right, I'm just going to take a PG cert, or you can just carry on doing more. So you can see how you feel and build on that. But yeah, see if it fits with your time management. Now, let's just say at this very moment you're waiting for a post, you've not got a post, then in a way you are in a really position of strength and advantage, because you're not having to do a daily 9 to 5. So then work on your publications, sign up for a distant learning masters if the finances allow. Try and do all of that stuff, because when you're working full time, doing on calls, then doing a lot of this extra stuff for your portfolio is hard. So if you're not in a post yet, then I would just run with as much project work, as much courses, as much publications, as much higher degree as things can allow.
I think I can add a bit on MSc actually. Although I'm not a surgical trainee, but I'm an Obs and Gynae ST7 at Manchester. I did an MSc on ReproMed, but I have an idea about the MSc in UK. It's a 1-year full-time course. It's quite intense, and as a full-time student, you have to attend the universities like Monday till Friday, most of the time, and so, as Dr. Hossain said, and Mehnaj said, I think probably the distant learning one was probably the best option, because you can suit your time and work-life balance accordingly. But going for a full-time would be difficult, or doing a full-time job and a full-time MSc.
I can't see any more questions. I'm going to leave my details in the chat box if anyone wants to contact me. The other thing I'd like to say is that BD.UK runs a core surgical training interview course. And the core surgical training interview course that was run by Emiko in previous editions, we had several candidates that were in the top 5 each year who would come on that course. So look out for the BD.UK CST interview course that will be next year. I think Mehnaj mentioned more interview teaching. I'm actually interviewing for the ST3 interviews in March, so I will not be teaching for the interview courses, just so there's no sort of conflict and things like that. But I'm sure there are plenty of excellent trainers amongst us, including Mehnaj, for interview teaching.
I think we have got a hands up from Dr. Faizul Hassan. I'm just gonna introduce him. He's a neurosurgeon consultant based at Birmingham. So yes, Dr. Hassan, if you want to say something. And we've got a question from another doctor as well, Mehnaj. I think that's for you, where you can probably answer that after this.
Hi, everyone. I think you can hear me, all of you. I'm driving, so you cannot see me. So again, it's a very nice presentation from Mehnaj, and Tanvir is always very helpful and energetic. And but a few points I want to make. So number one, that in general, in surgical specialty, where still the Bangladeshi doctors are lagging behind. We have a lot of more and more junior doctors are joining in various surgical specialty, but when compared to India and Pakistan, we are still lagging behind. Especially in neurosurgery, cardiothoracic surgery. So far, I know only 2 doctors made run-through training in neurosurgery, and only 1 doctor so far has been to the cardiothoracic run-through or training program. So when compared to Indians and Pakistani or other country, it is quite less. So we encourage all our juniors think about joining the surgical specialty and forget about the myths that the surgical specialty is not achievable or anything like that. And one thing I will also suggest that about this publication and presentation. Tanvir was very, very nicely mentioning that it is nothing. We think about, oh, we need to do a publication, we need to do a presentation, we spend years and years, and nothing happens. So, but if you are dedicated and you just kind of tag with your senior rage or your consultant, definitely you can get a publication pretty easily. And for the presentation, there's so many conferences are in UK you can present it. But sometimes when you go back to Dhaka or on the way back to Dhaka, just look for any conference in India. Okay, so there's so many of international conference happen in India. So on the way back to Dhaka, join that conference, present it there, and then go to Dhaka. So, and that will give you a big international conference, SAARC, South Asian, Asian, so many conferences are happening in India, which is very, very easy to get your name on for presentation. And also the publication one. So it is pretty easy. So if anyone needs any help or anything, just ask for any of the seniors. So previously, the Bangladeshi doctors don't used to help each other, but things are changing now. Everyone is eager to help for the juniors and guide them. So please ask any seniors. They will definitely help you in various respect for future surgical training. So like, as I'm in neurosurgery, if anyone wants to seek help and guidance, please more than welcome to contact me, and definitely I will try my best to help you out. Like Tan, I also sit in the ST3 interview panel, so I cannot guide you specifically regarding the question of the interview, but definitely we're more than happy to guide you for a general guidance regarding neurosurgery. And again, thank you all the organizer for organizing a very interesting webinar, and all the presenter was excellent. Thank you.
About the question, Dr. Fahim, where is it gone? So the question from Dr. Fahim is, can you please tell the required criteria to get into CST? Because some of the doctors who have just completed internship and cleared their MSCS won't be able to get into ST3 directly. Absolutely agree. I was there. I had completed internship and I had my MSCS, but I went to core surgical training because I didn't have the surgical experience. So CST is kind of similar. So the application around opens in October, November time. And then, so I was the last batch who didn't need to do MSRA. So that's the exam multiple specialties do. It based on like medicine, dermatology, gynecology, and they use this score for different specialties. So it has to be a different session to explain it thoroughly. But if I just summarize it for you, so if you have FY2 competence signed off, then you can apply for core surgical training. You need to have less than 18 months of post-foundation surgical experience to be eligible for core surgical training. Once you apply, you get invited for MSRA, that's exam, and depending on your MSRA score, you get MSRA score and your portfolio, you get shortlisted for interview, and then once you are in interview, again, it's fair chance, usually two candidates per post, and then offer release is kind of same. It's just you have less operative requirements compared to ST3, and you need courses and conferences, and they keep changing it every year. So you need to look into self-assessment scoring for core surgical training, which can be found in ORIEL, or which can be found in, if you search, it is, I always found Medibody explains it very well. So you can have a fair idea, and then you can start working on audit, QIP. If you can get a publication, that will be amazing. And I think that they have taken away conferences this time. So it's changing every year, and you can start preparing for MSRA, because that's a big part of it. That's a big part of core surgical training application now. So yeah, I totally agree. Core surgical training might be the right option for you, and we might need to arrange a session for that to discuss in detail. You're welcome.
Okay, so if we have answered all the question, and if we don't have any more questions, I think we can say that we can end this session. I have provided a link on the group chat. If we would be very grateful if you can provide us with some feedback. And hopefully we will be back with something soon, another webinar on some interesting topic or interesting pathway, or probably with some interview sessions as well. Would like to say good luck to all of you. Hope to see you soon, and thank you, Mehnaj and Dr. Hossain, for your valuable time. And we are honored to be able to do it in collaboration with BD.UK. Hopefully we'll be done something in future as well. And Dr. Hossain and Mehnaj has given their email on the group chat as well. If you want to ask any more question, feel free to do so. Okay, so goodbye from all of us today, and thank you again. And for you'll all get a certificate as soon as you do the feedback for us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mehnaj. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dr. Faisal.
Bye.